Nerdcast assemble!
Stay dandy, baby. One of the standout characters of the 4th season of My Hero Academia has been none other than Eijiro Kirishima, otherwise known as the Red Riot. He's always been a fan favorite character for being really over the top, super jacked up about everything, having a very literal hard head as he goes into battle, screaming about what it truly means to be a manly man kind of hero. And even with that, we never really knew who he was. That was until the latest episode of My Hero Academia, as both Kirishima and Fat Gum throw down with 2 members of the Shie Hassaikai. Hello, my friends. It's time to take a look at another super exciting episode of My Hero, and this was probably one of my favorite episodes from the season. And when I get to say that in every single review, it just feels great. It's great to see that the series continues to one-up itself in every single way and just continues to build on that excitement. And this is another episode which dealt with Eijiro Kirishima, who, like I said, has been one of the standouts of the season, especially when they revealed his unbreakable Red Riot abilities just a couple of episodes ago, and we finally get to see him in action again in this episode. And while he does get some good moments here, it's really not his fight. It's the moment where he learns that even in the face of absolute danger and death and the fact that you're probably going to lose, you can never give up. You have to be brave, you have to be bold, and you have to make the ultimate sacrifice. And what's really interesting about this episode is that most of it is actually dedicated to learning his backstory, which is very simple and told in the span of just a couple of minutes, but you'd be hard-pressed to find another anime series that can do that just as elegantly as it was done in this one right here. But the basic setup of the episode is that Kirishima and Fat Gum have been separated from the other heroes because you have Irinaka, the power of mimicry, actually ends up separating them and creating this like massive stone arm that comes out of the wall and grabs onto Fat Gum. But Kirishima jumps right in the way and ends up getting absorbed into his stomach, so they end up getting thrown into this dark room where they're going to have to go up against these 2 members of the Shie Hassaikai. One of them who goes by the name of Rappa, whose powers are basically just being able to punch really fast. It's real simple, but it's the perfect type of opponent for Kirishima and Fat Gum, especially because their entire power revolves around them being very defensive. They are literal human shields, so now they're going to have to contend with someone who constantly barrages them with physical attacks. Of course, Rappa is joined by another member of the Shie Hassaikai who also has the ability to create barriers. So this is a pretty interesting thing we have going on here. As the Hassaikai members actually mentioned, they're basically a shield and a spear going up against 2 shields, and that makes for a pretty interesting battle. The thing is, Rappa is incredibly powerful to the point where when he immediately goes on the attack against Kirishima, who uses his unbreakable abilities, guess what? Those unbreakable abilities are actually pretty freaking breakable, and in a pretty shocking sense. Not only does Kirishima's red ass get slammed against a wall, but you can even see that there are like portions of his armor which are actually ripping away from his like freaking skin. You can see all the musculature underneath. It's really creepy, and it's clearly the most damage that he has sustained in the entire series. And after being damaged in both physically and mentally, you have Fat Gum, who is taking all of the attacks from Rappa, continuously getting hit, and every single time he tries to attack, the other guy just puts up a barrier and he can't even hurt him. And Fat Gum has some incredible defensive abilities, but even he realizes that he himself has his limits. However, this is all eventually a build-up to a big reveal about his character as well, and a secret technique which is not revealed until the end of the episode. But I told you that so that we could talk about the backstory of Kirishima, which ultimately I think is kind of interesting. We actually go back to when he is in middle school, and he was a very different character at this point. I mean, he still had a lot of confidence in a sense that he would throw himself into the battle, but what's the old phrase that the spirit is willing but the flesh is weak, which is kind of ironic with a character like this, whose entire shtick is being able to create armor all over his body, but when he was younger, he couldn't do it the way that he could here, and you get to see a couple of scenarios where he's desperately trying to help out some fellow classmates, but ultimately, due to his inability to perfectly use his quirk, he can't really do anything. But the most interesting thing about his flashback is that he actually went to middle school with none other than Mina Ashido, who is the girl who uses acid abilities and looks like the super cute alien chick. And what's the big difference between these characters is that Mina has always been super peppy, super happy, and willing to go out of her way to help people, even in the absolute face of danger, despite the fact that probably just like Kirishima, she has not mastered her abilities. And this is something that through a number of different events of seeing these weird, creepy villains going up against people and going in situations where he could have helped, and seeing Mina actually do this, that he realizes that there's a lot more to being a hero. And this is all tied to a hero that he loves who goes by the name of Crimson Riot. Crimson Riot is essentially the All Might to Deku when it comes to Kirishima. He absolutely loves this hero, and it's very evident that he sort of modeled his entire appearance after him as well as his entire demeanor. And it's the type of thing where when you're younger, you don't really understand the message behind it, but as Kirishima got older, he actually realized what Crimson Riot was always trying to say about what it means to make the ultimate sacrifice and to put yourself in the way of danger to help others. It might be for nothing at the end of the day, but if it means you can actually save someone, that truly is what it means to be a hero. It's something that he takes with him very seriously, as well as Crimson Riot's overall aesthetic, because he ends up dyeing his hair. It's interesting to see that in the day he had a completely different look to himself, which in some ways I actually kind of prefer, but you know, I'm so used to seeing him with the ridiculous spiky red hair at this point that it's just such a part of his personality. And most importantly, you get to see that this is also where he formed sort of a strong bond with Mina. You get to see that these two characters are actually really good friends. And that makes sense. Go back and watch some of the previous episodes. These two characters get along very well. And again, what I especially love about this is how this is another one of those big arcs where they bring in like a specific group of characters and they really want to focus on them. And even though Mina is not going to be like a part of the battle or anything, by including her in this episode and showing us that backstory where she was involved with helping out Kirishima, you truly get to see that she's an important character, and they build upon her just a little bit more, and they don't have to do it by giving her a giant, ridiculous action scene. Again, one of the biggest strengths of this entire series is how they can take characters, give them just a very small amount of screen time, and make you fall in love with them, and that's what's great. So, this was the big moment for Kirishima, where he was going to desperately use his abilities yet again to battle against Rappa, who is completely obsessed with fighting. This guy is so over the top and fun. I love how he just has a hard-on for punching people in the face. It's hilarious and awesome to watch. It's also worth mentioning that when he's barraging Fat Gum with all of these punches, that it's very well animated. The detail is super awesome and looks incredibly painful. But that's when we realize that Fat Gum is actually taking all of these attacks and sort of building up and absorbing all of that kinetic and powerful energy within his body. And it's also going to be like combined with his other special ability, something that hasn't been revealed about Fat Gum until this episode. So Kirishima decides that while he might not be able to actually defeat these guys or even take all of their attacks completely head on, he still decides to jump in front of Fat Gum and take the attacks of Rappa, knowing that by doing so, he's going to allow Fat Gum to build up his power even more. And that's where we get to see that not only can he absorb this power, but apparently when he absorbs a lot of this stuff and all of his like defenses start to deplete, he actually isn't Fat Gum anymore. He's actually more like Slim Gum. He slims down to a more muscular version of himself, and then is able to release all of this energy that he's collected into one massive punch, not only saving Kirishima in the process, but taking out both Rappa and the barrier guy all in one massive punch. And it is awesome. You guys know me when it comes to action anime. I love a good punching scene. This episode has it in spades, but that moment was pretty damn fantastic. Again, another amazing battle with backstory, new villains, all contained within a single episode. There are a lot of other anime series, especially long-running ones, that could take a lot of notes from My Hero Academia in terms of giving you a complete and total package. The last two episodes have been perfect in how they have encapsulated and perfected their storytelling and doing it in the span of a single episode while still building the tension to what is ultimately going to be the final confrontation of this entire arc. This was a great moment for Kirishima and definitely one of the biggest development moments for him in the entire series, and has made me appreciate him all the bit more. Before, I simply liked him for his aesthetic. He was cool. He could turn into a badass looking rock dude who could punch the crap out of people. Now I see him as a flawed character who simply just wants to do the right thing and make the ultimate sacrifice because he knows at the end of the day, it's the right thing to do. It makes him a much better and layered character than we've ever seen before. And he still manages to look badass. That, my friends, is the hallmarks of a pretty damn good episode. So, what's the rundown on this episode of My Hero Academia? Aside from singing the praises of this episode, I liked a lot of little moments from this one. There's one moment in particular during this flashback sequence of Kirishima where he sees Mina and her friends are being, I want to say, not attacked by some sort of like giant monster guy who's looking for a hero agency. Whether he's actually looking for help or wanting to just mess things up is hard to say, but this guy looks really intimidating and they make him seem like he's kind of important. He may or may not be. Maybe they're just trying to really emphasize the moments of what happens to characters when they come up against something that just puts them in a complete and total state of fear. It was just sort of to illustrate that Mina will do that against a giant monster man, but at that time in his life, Kirishima would not dare do that. He was shaking in his boots. I might be reading into it too much, I don't know, but still, I think it's pretty freaking awesome. I especially love how at the beginning of the episode 2, we did get to spend just a little bit more time with Tamaki. It's very short, and he seems to pass out. The implication is that something worse is happening, but I don't see any death flags happening with this character. I have a feeling he's going to be just fine, and I think it would be a bad decision to get rid of that character way this early on. And we also have to consider that there's only been like a few major deaths throughout the entire series, and I feel like this one would be just a little more, I don't know, they would bring more attention to it. It was just a small scene at the beginning of the episode. But basically, Fat Gum and his entire team have basically battled at this point, so we're now going to have to move on to the other teams and see what they're actually going to do. I really hope we're going to spend more time with Uraraka and Tsuyu Asui. Hopefully they'll all get to have like kind of like their big moment as well. Of course, we're all waiting for the moment when Deku is inevitably going to run into Overhaul, which I think is going to be pretty good. Speaking of which, they do manage to even build upon the Shie Hassaikai just a little bit more when their group is actually being interrogated by Bubble Girl and Centipeter in this episode. We actually get to learn that there was a true leader, that old man of the Shie Hassaikai, who liked to do things a little differently than Overhaul, where when he ran his Yakuza organization, he did it with a little more class, so to speak. He didn't want to be considered like a villainous organization like something you would see in a comic book. It wasn't until he got sick and Overhaul decided to take over that things started to sort of evolve and transform into this villainous organization, something that it seems a lot of his underlings actually are not a very big fan of, something that they actually don't appreciate, as if maybe they don't really respect Overhaul all that much. Even Rappa refers to him as Overjerk, which I thought was actually kind of funny. I do love that they're actually building upon that too. Like, really, when you break it down, this episode had a lot of really great elements to it, and like I said, I love using this term, but it was a full package kind of episode. It just worked in every single sense. It also helped that it also looked really good. There were some fantastic animation moments in this episode. The moments of watching Fat Gum just get obliterated by Rappa was hard to watch, but the moment was even better when he finally revealed his big punching ability. It was just so perfect, and watching these two characters work together, it was just great. I loved it. And I loved this episode, which is why I'm definitely going to give it a 5 out of 5. This is mandatory viewing for those who are continuing to watch the series. I really have no complaints with this one. It was just another great episode of My Hero Academia and another great moment in the Shie Hassaikai arc. I can't wait to see what's actually going to be happening next. As someone who doesn't read the manga, watching this explode off the screen every freaking week is just a joy to watch. However, you heard my thoughts. I want to hear yours. Tell me what you thought about this episode in the comments section below and what you hope to see from the future of the 4th season of My Hero Academia. What did you think about Eijiro Kirishima's backstory? Did you like the character before? Do you appreciate him a lot more now? What about Fat Gum and his secret abilities to slim down and just frickin' Falcon Punch the hell out of anyone? And what sort of battles do you hope to see in the future of the Shie Hassaikai arc? There it is. Let's talk about it in the comments section. Thank you all for watching this review. If you want to go the extra mile in supporting this video, aside from just, say, watching this video or liking it, you could check out my PayPal and Patreon accounts. Remember, guys, a little bit goes a long way. Even if you donate just a freaking $1 a month, it is going to make such a massive improvement on this channel, whether it be the cameras I use, the audio that I'm using, or maybe even the lighting. And I'm also getting ready to change my policy. Before I made it, it was like a $10 donation where I would do an anime review of your choice. I'm about to bring that sucker down to like $1. I'm about to just go crazy with the anime review requests, and this is going to be sort of like your grand opportunity to make that happen. Now, of course, if I get inundated with a lot of freaking like review requests, of course, I'm going to have to take my time in making them work because I want to make those videos high quality, and of course, I want to be able to, you know, include imagery from the actual show that I'm talking about. But again, I haven't made those changes yet, but they are going to be coming very soon. Just something that I wanted to throw out there. Aside from that, thank you all for watching this review. I'll see you all next time, and as always, plus ultra, baby!